So my most ambitious project yet is pretty much at its final stage. Yes, it's about time. I've been working on this forever. I know you guys are definitely excited to see this. I've had a lot of interest, especially from the people over at ModMyMods.com. I've recently reached out to them again for a little bit of help with a missing O-ring in my cooling reservoir. So they're going to send me another one that actually fits directly. Fantastic, guys. Thank you ever so much for that. I do mention ModMyMods.com a lot. I am not sponsored in any way by ModMyMods whatsoever. I do, however, hope that you guys check out their site if you're interested in doing a project like this or something similar. They are definitely good guys to get in contact with. Great products. So, what we're going to be looking at today is the basically complete build of the Raspberry Pi case. So I have the entire case plus the back panel. I have the front panel not finished yet, but that'll be this afternoon. The slide-in tray that will house all of the wiring. So power supplies, the exit fan, a filter, power buttons, all that slides in the bottom in one piece. I'm trying to make this as modular as possible. And that's really about it. There's so few pieces that end up being with this thing. It's pretty cool. So what we're going to hop on into Tinkercad and I will show you the current state of this project. So here we have a outside view of the entire case as it would appear when it's put together. Now, one thing to note right off the bat is that this transparent window here is not completely cut out. In fact, it hasn't actually been applied yet. And that's because I have yet to design the exact shape of the cutout window. So I'll probably do that this afternoon. That's not going to be part of this video, but we're going to get into what else is here and layout it's like. So we're going to start down here at the bottom, and you'll notice I have 3 buttons here, and they are offset, 2 to a group and 1 side by itself. This is the power button on the right. Next we have the fan and pump control for the cooling system, and then the last one on the outside is the lights. Now these are push and latch, so you push it in, it latches on, you push it again, it undoes the latch and turns off. So especially the power switch is not a software controlled power button, it is a hardware power button. So if you hit this while the system's running, it will simply shut the system off and that'll be the end of that. Now of course I'm the only one using this right now, this isn't public, so you know, design may change eventually, but this is how I have it laid out. The entire case will be printed in black, and you'll notice there's a little bit of a lip right here along the right side that continues to the left, but then there isn't one over here. This panel and the buttons are actually end up being centered. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2 pieces here, we're going to take the panel and the cutout off. But first, we're going to look at the back. I'll show you what's back here. So on the back, we have a vent clip, which is this piece right up here. This guy is a separate printable piece that just pops off. And he just has little tabs, little buttons that kind of poke into this guy, so you can kind of flex them a little bit, poke them in. What's going to go in between here and here is a 4mm wall air conditioning unit foam filter. And this is used to filter out any of the dust, any of the air that gets into the system to prevent dust buildup. It's not a perfect filter, but it's decent, I think, for right now. And it is upgradable. And everything gets pulled in here and then out through the fan that blows on the radiator. That also prevents air from, or dust from building up on the radiator itself. So everything inside goes through the filter. And I can double up on the filters if I want to. They'll crush down. So let's go ahead and hide this guy. Come on down, we have for the bottom, which I'll explain here in a minute, this is where the power supplies and all the wiring and everything all ends up down underneath here. So to cool the power supplies, which sit in this spot, which is the 12 volt, and this spot over here, which is the 5 volt, we have a 40mm fan. And this blows air in. It's a closed loop system basically, except for, well, not closed loop, but it's self-contained. It doesn't interact with the air in case. It blows in here, comes around the side, and then back out this slot. I currently do not have a filter system in place. I can design one later, and this tray can actually be printed separately. So I'm not worried about having it be perfect the first time around. The opening here on this side is for the electrical outlet. So your plug is in here, you have a removable fuse and a full system power switch. This power switch will turn off everything. It actually disengages both power supplies, whereas the switch on the front disengages or turns off the power for the Raspberry Pi after the power supply, and these two do the lights and the pump after the power supply. So these work only if the system's on through this switch. So I have multiple layers of protection here. So yes, it pulls in here, goes around the corner, and then blows out over here. I may upgrade that at a later date, but for now I think that's pretty much where I want it to be. Obviously you have cutouts for the Raspberry Pi, both the Ethernet and the USB ports. It is upgradable to a, say, ASUS Tinkerboard, if you want that. Same footprint and everything, or at least it should. The one thing that's missing here, which I will get Thursday, is a HDMI panel mount connector. And once I have it in my hand, I'm actually going to make a cutout for that here to mount an external HDMI connection that'll hook onto the Raspberry Pi. And it's a little short, like 6-inch connector with a flat right angle vertical mount. And that'll connect to here and then go right to the panel mount so you can hook up an external display. I currently do not have any plans to hook up sound to this. I can always drill a hole in it later and then make an extension through the deposit jack here. But for now, I am foregoing sound. That's not going to be something this computer is going to have. And I'm fine with that, honestly. So let's go ahead and take off these two panels. And we're just going to delete them. Here is the inside. So our components are all sitting here together. They're everything in silver. And if we remove these, we're left with what is going to be the shell. Everything has been measured and checked multiple times. I've printed off like just these little clips to make sure that the distribution blocks fit inside, that the hoses squeeze in, all that kind of stuff. I've measured the distance between the center holes for these guys, compared them to my physical Raspberry Pi. They do fit. And I went ahead and added these little guys to the side. These are to take little laptop screws. I have a whole tub full of these things. There are 12 in total that run all the way around the outside and hold the side panel onto the main case. I designed them to require as little support as possible from the bottom without getting too overly creative and taking up too much space, and as close to the outside as possible so that they push on them to screw them in. You don't risk breaking them all, because then you'd have to reprint the whole frame. And speaking of, this entire frame takes, last time I ran it through Cura, said it was going to take about 45 hours to print, and somewhere around 390 grams filament. A little less than half a spool. That's quite a bit. That's going to take a long time. But you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm hoping to only print this once. So let's go on down to the next part, and that is the bottom tray here. And this was literally made to slide in and out. That was the whole point. You can ignore, you just hide those. Okay. So this tray is designed to, with a 0.5 millimeter tolerance, slide directly into a case like this. This front panel allows to support the case vertically, as well as giving support for the buttons front to back. Again, it's got a mount for the fan, Go ahead and pull this back out here. I'm just going to all the way over here so we get it. So as we look at this, these 4 mount points are for the 12-volt power supply, and it's mounted on this side specifically so that the fans for the radiator and the pump for the reservoir just have to go across this little bridge right here and end up at the power supply, and I can feed the 12-volt fan in the back here, a little 40mm fan, directly from here without having to run more wires than necessary around the other side. Fan does fit very snug. It's actually got a 1mm difference in both width and height, so it's not a super tight fit, but you'll notice what I did here. Oh, this is pretty clever. I added a little bit of an extra cutout so that I can put a nut and bolt through here rather than a piece that would go in and grind into the plastic. So I could actually make this a little bit thinner and just have a completely cylindrical cutout. So the fan goes on the back, and this extra recess here allows for the bolt head to sit inside and not protrude past here, because remember, when this goes in, there isn't a lot of room. Again, left to right, there is a 0.5mm tolerance. So there's a 0.5mm on the left side and a 0.5mm on the right side. So there is a little bit of play. This isn't meant to be 100% airtight, but I did want things to be as close proximity as possible. And on the back side here is the 5-volt power supply, and it's specifically on the back because if I run a wire out here through this hole that's in the back here behind one of the fans, which is accessible right there, you can just barely see it. That'll run up behind the fan, behind the Raspberry Pi, and then hook in right here to the micro USB. So I'm actually going to cut off the micro USB cable and make it plug and play instead of hardwire it. I want to be able to upgrade or swap the board out if something happens. So yeah, the 5-volt power supply is only for Raspberry Pi, nothing else. So I can't get any spiked power draws or anything like that. And the Pi gets a consistent 5 volts. I believe this is a 5-volt 3-amp power supply, so it should be consistent. Another thing to look at in this design is these arches. So I specifically designed the arch to allow it to go over a bump. Now that prevents the entire tray from sliding left to right, and also guides it straight back into the cavity, along with where the front panel switches mount here. You have those guides, you have the 2 guides for these bridges, then you have the little gap that's in here. This will not affect, back here, will not affect the wiring for the AC outlet because nothing ever passes by it. That's why the AC outlet's on the back. And I specifically oriented this outlet here so that the cord is as close to the bottom as possible. I didn't want anything sitting up high, especially if you turn this a little bit so that you can maybe see the wires. You don't have a whole bunch of wire hanging down behind it. You want to see as little as possible. So that was completely intentional as well. Yeah, really, that's kind of about it. I mean, it's pretty simplistic. I did also want to obviously change the shape of the tire case, so I rounded off the front here. I've got a bit of wasted space that's right here, as well as it's going to be a completely blank front. I'm okay with that. Down the road, I may end up putting something here that you can swap out for a design, maybe an LCD screen of some kind. Even a second Raspberry Pi, like sitting vertically right in here, that only drives a display. I could do that. There's a whole bunch of possibilities with this case. But I do have all of the components that were here on the side that are each of these individual pieces. So I have each of the brackets, I have the spacing and mounting for the pins and the cutout for the Raspberry Pi in the side of a case. I have the fan cutout, the electrical outlet. I have both of the cavities for the reservoir and the radiator. So all of this stuff is modular. I can just drop it into another case and go. So making another one or upgrading this one is super easy. A future version is probably going to include magnets, which are going to replace these screws here. I need to look into getting a series of rare earth magnets that I can use to replace these, which means I'll have a little bit bigger spot, but all you have to do is snap the cover on and off. It may not line up quite as well, and I kind of like the idea of the screws, but I'll give something a try with magnets. That works. So, yeah, this is kind of how things are sitting right now. Hope you guys like this. I put a lot of work into this guy. Yeah, give me some suggestions. This thing probably won't be finished until after the first of the year. I'm not going to be able to make the Christmas deadline. Unfortunately, some stuff that I'm waiting on from China has yet to... as far as I can tell, it's past customs, but that's the last I've heard from it. And that was about 4 or 5 days ago. So I'm probably not going to make it in time. If it shows up at the door, great. But don't expect this by Christmas, unfortunately. I thought I was going to be able to. But yeah, hope you guys enjoy. If you have any other suggestions, go ahead and let me know. As you can tell, my channel has been monetized again. Of course, as soon as I had mentioned that I wasn't going to get monetized and I might have to, abandon ship or whatever, lo and behold, like within the next 2 hours, they monetized the account. So, yeah, I'm going to try not to overflood you guys with that, but it is basically my source of income at the moment, so please bear with me. I hope you don't mind. With that, guys, like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell notification because I do have some more very cool videos coming out. And with that, guys, have a good one. I will see you guys next time.